Welcome to this module on providing culturally responsive instruction for Native American students. The purpose of this module is to support teachers' efforts to provide culturally responsive instruction for Native American students. The module includes the following sections: the what and why of culturally responsive instruction, understanding culture and Native American diversity, foundations for culturally responsive practice, where to start, initial guidelines, going further, more guidelines, pedagogical implications by subject area, and developing a culturally responsive practice. This video addresses the first section, the what and why of culturally responsive instruction. To begin, we will start with describing what culturally responsive instruction is. Culturally responsive instruction assumes that a firm grounding in the heritage, language, and culture indigenous to a particular tribe is a fundamental prerequisite for the development of culturally healthy students and communities associated with that place. Different scholars have weighed in over the years on this question. This professional learning series ascribes to the following principles. Culturally responsive instruction is schooling that makes sense to students who are not members of or assimilated into the dominant social group. It recognizes, respects, and uses students' identities and backgrounds as meaningful sources for creating educational experiences and environments. It also includes high expectations for all students. Culturally responsive instruction is designed and practiced in ways that resonate with the cultures that students bring with them from home. It builds a bridge between the cultures of home and school. To engage in culturally responsive instruction, teachers need to learn about diverse students, learn about their needs, take actions to address these needs, and adapt their approaches as students' needs change over time. We recognize that a number of different terms have been used to describe the integration of culture and education, such as culturally responsive teaching, culturally responsive pedagogy, and culturally responsive education. We've chosen to use the term culturally responsive instruction for this professional learning series because of the scope it implies. These materials address what teachers and students do in the classroom. The program does not encompass a school-wide effort, though we believe that is also very important. We offer the materials here as a starting place in a longer, worthwhile journey. Why is it important to provide culturally responsive instruction for Native students? The literature highlights the following points. First, it is an issue of equity, a central tenet of our democracy. Secondly, culturally responsive instruction is needed because current schooling is not meeting Native students' educational needs. Thirdly, the literature shows that culturally responsive instruction does benefit Native students' educational success. Culturally responsive instruction is also important in supporting tribal goals for their youth. And finally, the federal Every Child Succeeds Act, or ESSA, requires education that supports and is responsive to Native American students' language and culture. In thinking about equity and its meaning, the Arizona Department of Education guidance on culturally inclusive practices offers an important insight. It states that equity does not equal equality. Rather, an equitable educational system provides resources and supports at the level needed by each individual student and recognizes that all students do not need the same supports. What do we mean when we say that current schooling is not meeting and indeed is failing to meet the educational needs of Native students? The numbers show a clear story. For example, our National Assessment of Educational Progress shows that Native student scores lag behind other students, and the opportunity gap is growing. Native students' high school dropout rates also greatly surpass those of other students. The obvious result is that Native students frequently are not adequately prepared for college or career success, or to take on the roles needed of them in their communities. But the research shows a way forward to close these gaps. Numerous case studies demonstrate the value of culturally responsive instruction for Native students. The research suggests benefits for a variety of student outcomes. enhanced self-esteem, healthy identity formation, more self-directed and politically active, showing more respect for tribal elders, having a more positive influence in their tribal communities, exhibiting more positive classroom behavior and engagement, and achieving academically at a higher rate. Additionally, culturally responsive and sustaining instruction helps reduce the cultural conflict that may exist between many Native communities and their schools. This conflict is due in part to the legacy of the federal boarding schools, which Native children were subjected to for generations. A goal of these schools was to force children to forget their culture, religion, and language. Students were punished if they were caught practicing any of these. This prior federal policy stands in stark contrast to recent and current policy under ESEA and ESSA. Culturally responsive instruction is also more aligned with goals that tribal nations have for their children. Tribal goals are particularly important to keep in mind because of tribes' unique government-to-government relationship with the U.S. federal government. Tribes are legally nations within a nation and have a high degree of sovereignty over such matters as the nature of schooling for their youth. All tribes do not necessarily share the same educational goals, but there are some significant commonalities. These include students becoming bicultural and bilingual so that they gain the competencies they need to effectively support and navigate both their tribal communities and larger society. Tribes also cite promoting tribal sovereignty and self-determination as a goal of education. In terms of ESSA, ESSA explicitly states that schools receiving federal funds should be designed to be responsive to the language and cultural needs of Indian students and support Native American language programs and culturally related activities. Additionally, ESSA funds are intended to support activities that promote the incorporation of culturally responsive teaching and learning strategies into the educational program of the local education agency, and to maintain, protect, and promote the rights and freedom of Native Americans and Alaska Natives to use, practice, maintain, and revitalize their languages. Thus, culturally responsive instruction for Native American students, including support of Native languages, is the current federal mandate. Thank you. You have completed the first section of this module. Now for some exit questions. What do you think is the most important reason to provide culturally responsive instruction for Native students? Why is that? Are there some ways that you are already practicing culturally responsive instruction in your classroom or program? If so, please describe. We are grateful to the following individuals for their contributions to these modules: